let's talk about how to manage files and import them into OpX and how OpX thinks about files. So first we're going to look at the main file management software, which is called File Manager. You can find File Manager here at the bottom Start menu, and it's those two floppy disk looking things, a blue icon. And we'll make this a little bit bigger. You can click on the gray bar in the middle to move that around. And if you want to see the name of something, you can click on the gray bar in the title bar up there and just move that around a bit. Okay, so navigating is important. So I want to show you two things. First of all, on the top where it shows the folder, if you click on that, you'll be able to navigate anywhere on your computer. So right now we're in the main folder for KQFR, and you can see that it has this kind of a tree, I guess you call it. It goes from the C drive to program files to Broadcast Software International, OpX, KQFR, and then whatever folder it is in there that you're looking at. So you can search the M drive, which is where we do most of our editing, and you can see the edited audio for import is often where we'll have new files that we've saved and are ready to import into OpX. So on the left is what is in your computer. On the right is what OpX sees. All right, so let's talk about how OpX sees things. Now, in order to find the apps that we're looking at, there are two places that you could go. One of them is this OpX shortcuts folder on the hard desktop. Double click on that and you'll see a wide variety of OpX related software. So the one we're in right now is called the File Manager. And we've talked about the import merge app in other places. But the ones that we're looking at right now are this file server and FTP server. So let's double click on those. There we go. That's the file server and the FTP server. I know you can't see it very well when I have them over on the right, so let me move these guys over a little bit. Now there's another way that you can find these folders or these apps. If you know what the name is, you remember what the name is, you can click on the search bar button down by the start menu and just start typing. If you type server, you'll find the file server, audio server, and down here is the FTP server. Or if you're looking specifically for one of them, just type FTP or file, and you'll get these various apps. So that's just a way to find things. But if you don't remember the name, the OpX shortcuts is the easiest way to find these things. Okay, I'm going to close that. And now we're looking at these two. I'll minimize the file manager so we can pay attention to these. We're looking at these two apps, and they do kind of a background work with OpX. OpX doesn't see files that are on your computer. It doesn't rely on that. It creates its own database, lists of files that it has access to. And it doesn't really matter which folders those are in as long as it's a folder that OpX is paying attention to. So the file server shows you which folders they're paying attention to. It's this C drive, program files, broadcast software, blah, 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 and down to blinks, news, records, music, all of those things. Let me show you where they are in File Explorer. If we click on Windows, we click on Program Files, we click on Broadcast Software International, and then OpX, and then on KQFR, these are the folders that OpX is watching. And that's what's listed in the file server list right here that you can see. Now, the file server isn't the one watching them, interestingly enough. The file server is watching for a specific thing. It looks for this .dbf and .cdx files. And those .dbf and CDX files are lists of everything that's in that folder. So all it pays attention to is the DBF or database file, while the OpX FTP server is the one that's actually looking at all the files and then creating that DBF and CDX file that the file server looks at. So these two need to be running in the background all the time. They don't run the the station, but they make it possible for the station to see the files, essentially. So in order for us to have a file that the station knows exists, we have to import it into one of these folders, and the FTP server will automatically comb through those folders on a regular basis. Every change that's made there, it sees, and then it updates those database files, and that makes it available for the for the file server to access. And then because the file server can see it, the audio server will be able to call it. So when it calls this particular promotional, it's going to be able to see it in the file server. So we need all of these running. We don't close them, we just minimize them, and we just let them run in the background. All right, let's go back to the file manager. So this is the way to get it into the server folders that the file manager and FTP file server and the FTP server are looking at. So let's go over to the right side. In order for us to be able to move it, we have to select one of these folders. And now we have the option of clicking on one of these right-facing arrows. The right-facing arrows say, let's move this thing from the left side to the right side. The first one just moves it. We can click on that. It will do this normalizing thing and then move it over to the promos, and there you go. And you can see right there at the top, there's the SID JSON just modified today. Looks great, right? So let's delete it because we don't want it in there. It's actually a test file. But if you move it over there, it's available. Now, OpX won't know what to do with it because it has to be called. And most of these things, we've created something called a cart. And the cart is how OpX interacts with these things. So let's go back to the audio server and I'll show you. Notice that it says the description is promo 32nd and the name is promo 32nd. This isn't a file. Instead, this is a cart. Okay, let's look at the carts. So we'll click on that. I'll show you again. We'll click on this folder at the top where it has the down arrow. You can also click on this blue tree icon, but clicking on either one of those will take you back to the main folder. Now let's go to carts. The red just indicates that it was modified recently. That's all it indicates. It's not bad. It just says this was a recent one. And I did something just a few minutes ago with that, so that's why it's red. But let's say that we were to want to add something into one of these promo carts. They're like buckets, and the bucket holds stuff, or maybe like a list is maybe a better illustration. And then it just kind of goes down the list, and it plays one, and then the next time it's called, it plays the next one, and the next time it's called, it plays the next one. So it's kind of a bucket of files, or a cart filled with groceries, whatever you want to call it. So let's open this promos up, and you can see we've got a list. We've got a list of promotionals, and then the next one it's going to play is the one that has the arrow beside it. So if we wanted to, for example, it's 11:31, maybe the next one we want to play is the Kid Zone. Well, we could just change that and use this right arrow to move the arrow down there to make the Kid Zone the next thing that people hear. We'll put it back. It's fine to keep it where it's at. So this is a list, and it just, every time it's called through the log that we make for playing through the day, it just plays the next file in this list. We've got a cart for promos. We've got a cart for station IDs, so you don't hear the same station ID every time. We have a cart for in the Bible. Every Saturday we play one of these, and you can see the next one to play is the 9th sermon in the 10 Commandments series called Truth Teller. And then the next one to play is going to be a new series, and then another series after that through Daniel, etc. So the cart provides the opportunity for us to not pay too much attention to which file is being played from our automation software. I mean, not from our automation software, but from our scheduling software. The scheduling software only needs to know the cart exists. Then we put the file into the cart. All right, so let's give an example. This right here, SID JSON, is a station ID. But notice that when we click station ID on the right, we don't have an option to move into that station ID cart. In order to do that, we have to go back to where we're going to put the file. And we're going to put it here in the KQFR promos folder. So the first one just moves it. The second arrow, the blue arrow with the funny circle with antenna, we click on that, and it's going to ask us to put a cart name. Now, once we put the cart name in, it's going to both move the file over to that particular folder, and it's going to add the file to that particular cart. Now, the name of this cart is Station ID 10 SEC. I could probably simplify that, but this is the name of the cart, and if we write it differently, it's going to do something that we don't want it to do. It's going to create a brand new cart. But notice over here, this is calling, whenever it calls a station ID, it calls station ID 10 sec. If I change it to anything else, when it calls for this, the files won't be available because they're going to be in a new cart. That's, for instance, if I just add S, station IDs 10 sec, it's going to create a new cart. And then it'll never find that file because it's calling station ID, not station IDs. Okay, so let's click OK, and it does two things. Number one, it moves it over here. You can see it at the top there. And number two, it adds it to the bottom of this cart. Now, for our purposes, we don't want it to be there. We're going to go ahead and save, and I'm going to remove this. I'm going to delete it from that folder. Yes. Delete it, good, and now I'm going to go back to the carts folder, and I want to click on this station IDs 10 sec, and I want you to notice that it doesn't appear there anymore. It's not at the bottom, and that's because when we delete it from the server, it's no longer available in the cart. So we're looking at managing these files, and we want to make sure that the files have the appropriate details in them. So not only are they in the right cart, they're in the right folder, but they also have the appropriate details. So let's go to, for example, one of these promos. And, we're going to go to the promos folder. And let's look at a recent promo. There's a few things that we need to notice. On the left side, we have title, description, and artist name, etc. We don't care about most of this, but we don't want that to be blank. We want the title to have something in it. And that title it makes it easier to see what's playing and how to arrange things, so it's important. Also, knowing who the artist was who actually did that is helpful to have as information, because it'll, let's say that all of them were called Station ID, and that was all that they were called. And we didn't have an idea of what the artist's name was or the date or anything like that, then we could have Ruby playing 3 or 4 station IDs one after the other. But if we want to mix that up, then we want different artists. So we have Ruby on one and Iris on another and Adeline on a third. So each of these station IDs or promos or whatever, it's easier to spread them out and to make them sound more natural on the radio if we know more of these details. So making sure that we add a title and an artist is good. There's a few other things on here that we don't use. For instance, start date and end date. This would allow us to create a file that's only played from this time to that time. So from April 1st to April 30th, we're going to play this promotional. And then after that, we're going to not want to have it played at all. Well, that's helpful. For example, I'm going to close this. There is another here, Grief Share. This promotional is only going to be valid through March 23. So we can set the end date. That's fine, end of day. And theoretically, we've never tried this before in our station, but theoretically, when we put the end date on, even if it's in a cart, it's not going to play that after that date. So we don't typically use this, but it's helpful if there is a date-specific promotional. The intro and segue give us an opportunity to start the file later than the beginning, so a second or two into it, or begin to add something else in towards the end. And we can add a segue here, but that we don't want to do that. We can also create commands. Again, we don't use this. Very simple. We're just changing the title and making sure there's an artist, and then we save it, and we're good to go there. So that's basically managing these things. Once you get it into a cart, and I'm going to go back to the carts so that you can see them. Once you get it into one of these carts, oh, now this is interesting. Do you see this ITB fruit or root? This is a cart. Let's see, what is that? 02. Okay, so that's the second in the series of spiritual fruit. Somehow this file was created and it was added to its own cart. That's when somebody clicked this button, the second arrow with the cart icon on it, and they typed in the wrong name. That could have been me. So this is a cart that we don't need. It's not helpful. But before we delete it, let's make sure that this is actually in another cart. This would be in the Bible. And we're going to look at, let's see. Well, it doesn't look like it exists anywhere else. That fruit or root series. Oh no, here it is. 1 and 2. They're coming up next. And they're there. So I don't need to worry about deleting that cart because it's still going to be played in the Bible cart. So let's go ahead and delete this additional cart that's unnecessary. So we have 3 carts that we typically use: promos, station IDs, and in the Bible. Those are the only programs we have so far. But we've thought about playing this Unlocking Bible Prophecies evangelistic series at some point. And so I've created this cart that has all of these programs in it. Now, notice they're out of order. If we were to look at this order, this part 1 should be at the top. And there we go. And then part 2 should be next. We're going to move it up, right? And then we'll create this as the one that begins it. And, oops, there is a different one. Number 1, part 2. There we go. Okay, so we just need to reorder this. It's not a big deal. It's just about moving them around so that they're in the correct order. And then theoretically, we could call at a specific time Unlocking Bible Prophecies, and it'll play through that cart one after the other. We haven't set up for that yet, but we've got the cart there for when we want to do that. I think that sums it up.